Our today's lecture deals with other structural element of multiculturalism. I mean, religious diversity in Azerbaijan. So I just orient you to the literature, so you should read this literature and before you start the course. And we have a lot of literature, so all literature just brought here to your attention so you can use them in your class. First, I would like just to tell you about the background of this religious diversity. To note that historically Azerbaijan was occupied and subjugated by less developed Arabic and African tribes from the Arabic Peninsula, who invented a new monotheistic Islamic religion and ideology. Inter alia, Islam was very close, or has very close affinities and bonds to the monotheistic religions of Judaism and Christianity as well, especially the religion of Zoroastrians of Indo-European origins, both in terms of ethnic and religious traditions that had deep roots in Azerbaijani pre-Islamic history and culture. Politically speaking, having arisen in the 8th century, Shia Islamic denomination became dominant religion in Azerbaijan when the Safavid dynasties came to political power in Azerbaijan. Contemporary historians consider that Azerbaijan has been a scene of prevailing competition between Sunni and Shia ruling empires, and still in the 18th the number of Sunni and Shia followers was almost even in the rear. As a result of a special kind of relationship between followers of the two branches of Islam in Azerbaijan, living peacefully side by side and even sharing traditions, rituals and titles. However, according to some estimates, the blurred division between Sunnis and Shias was strengthened throughout the course of history. For example, in the pre-Azerbaijan Democratic Republic period, much of the intelligence's effort went into lessening the split between the Shias and the Sunnis, according to the sources. In independent Azerbaijan, there has been a push to capitalize on this issue, on this problem. Let me bring you some concrete data and to your attention. Bordering Armenia, Georgia, Iran and Turkey, Azerbaijan has a majority Shia Muslim population of 9 million. Some 13 million ethnic Azeris live in northern Iran. According to the recent estimate, 96% of Azerbaijani population is Muslim, of whom about 65% are Shia Muslims and 35% Sunni Muslims. The remaining 4% of the population includes Russian Orthodox, Armenian Orthodox, and other Christians, including Lutherans, Roman Catholics, Baptists, Moloccans, and Seventh-day Adventists. Some 20,000 Jews and Baha'is and non-believers living in Azerbaijan. Among Muslims and Russian Orthodox, religious identity is usually based on ethnicity. This is especially the case in the case of Judaism. Shia Muslims, Sunni Muslims, Russian Orthodox and Jews are officially seen as the country's traditional religion groups. In more close view, so like looking at these issues, so I want to just to use a sort of historic chronological order and start with the religions that have ancient roots in Azerbaijan, and in terms of chronology and in terms of tradition. One of such religions is Zoroastrianism. This is one of the most common religions in Iran, India and Central Asia, which originated in the historical lands of Azerbaijan in the 6th century before Christ. Zoroastrianism, which maintained its state religious status over the long times, began to weaken in the 7th century with the emergence and spread of Islam in the region. Zoroastrianism, that had a wide circle of indigenous peoples in India and Iran, is one of the spiritual contributions made by the Azerbaijani people to the human culture. It is no surprise that at the time when Islam was the strongest imperial religion, the Ateshgah temple in Surakhani was operated in Baku. This temple is one of the main cultural monuments of Azerbaijan today. At present, there are about 130,000 members of Zoroastrians in the world, mainly living in India and India's Bombay and Gujarat states. Also, smaller Zoroastrian groups are operating in London, New York, Chicago, Boston, and Los Angeles. I would like just to bring to your attention the contribution that Zoroastrians made in the history of thought and history of intellectual developments. In my view, the most contributions of Zoroastrian to the spiritual and intellectual world of humanity lies in the invention of the triple structure of the religious spirit that some modern French scientists today consider as a common structure of the Proto-Indo-European spiritual developments. On the other hand, this is the second contribution that Zoroastrian invented or operated or discovered. Zoroastrians invented the dual structure of the cosmos, the world, which is in their views governed by two universal principles of the good and the bad. This dualistic worldview ends in the triumph of the good, which is embedded in human thought and human behavior and human word. So this means that good in our thought, good in our behavior, good in our word. So in our utterances, in our speech, yes? What concerns the dualism of Zoroastrians, that became one of the foundations of continental European philosophy and metaphysical thoughts from Plato through Descartes and Kant to the contemporary structuralism in their different manifestations in social and political philosophical thoughts. Let me say some word about Judaism, which is also one of the ancient religions having its roots, in Azerbaijan and still very alive in Azerbaijan. One of the monotheistic religions spread in Azerbaijan and benefiting from the cultural richness of our peoples, Azerbaijanis, mutually. The fact that this religion, which emerged in the 8th century before Christ, differs mainly from both Islam and Christianity by its sense to be the national religion. In terms, that's only the Jews who practice it. So they can be the follower, they can profess that. So if you're going to convert to Judaism, it's impossible to do. As you might know, the attitude to Jews living in most parts of the world has not been the same. It was different. However, in all historical periods, Jews feel themselves as equal members of a large Azerbaijani family who were surrounded by the attention and care of the indigenous population of Azerbaijan and were very free members of this society. It is because of this attitude that a red settlement in the Guba district has survived in our time as the only historical place in the former Soviet Union where the mountain Jews compactly live today. According to some researchers, the mountain Jewish community has been formed as a result of the numerous migrations of Jews from Iran to the Caucasus region. In the 18th century, the most populous area of mountain Jews was the territory of the Guba Khanate. The Jewish settlement here for a long time was considered the largest settlement in the mountain Jews community in the area. It is no coincidence that at that time the settlement was called Jerusalem's Caucasus, and there were built 3 synagogues. The Oghuz region of northern Azerbaijan is one of the most densely populated areas of mountain Jews who immigrated from Gilan province of the South Azerbaijan and settled therein in the 17th and 18th centuries. After the restoration of independence of Azerbaijan, national minorities living in this country, as well as mountain Jews, began a new stage in their lives. The Azerbaijani government began to support and protect the national and religious minority rights and freedoms, their cultures and languages. Religious communities were registered, new synagogues were built, national religious ceremonies and holidays were freely recorded. At present, 6 synagogues in the capital Baku, Guba and Oghuz districts, the worship homes belonging to Jewish religious communities in Ganja and Sumgait have operated. The 200-year-old synagogue belonging to mountain Jews of Jewish community in the Red Settlement was commissioned in October 2010 after major restoration works by Azerbaijani government. On October 27, 2011, the state budget-funded synagogue was inaugurated in Baku by the initiative and support of the President of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev. Official opening ceremony was held on April 5, 2011. The Jewish community of Georgia was the Jewish community migrated to the north of Azerbaijan after mountain Jews. They are representatives of the Georgian-speaking Jewish community settled in the territory of Georgia from ancient times. One of the Jewish communities operating in Azerbaijan is European Jews. In other words, Ashkenazi, the term originated from the name which was given to Jews to name Germany in the Middle Ages. The people of Azerbaijan have historically taken care of the Jews living here and did not treat them badly even at the time when anti-Semitism was very popular in the world. Today, Jews in Azerbaijan live in a friendly and tolerant environment, guaranteed by Azerbaijani government in the condition of security and peace, working, living together with their families and relatives. Many years ago, Jews came to Azerbaijan to work and survive. Today they have become the worst citizens of our country, and the Republic of Azerbaijan has become their eternal homeland. According to estimates, currently 16,000 Jews live in Azerbaijan. They actively participate in the political, economic, social, cultural life of the Republic. Jewish communities are considered the most active religious organization of the Republic of Azerbaijan, and many of their state-registered organizations continue their activity freely. Let me say some words about Christianity, Orthodox Christianity too in Azerbaijan. One of the widespread religions in Azerbaijan, of course, is Christianity. In our country, Christianity is represented by 3 main denominations: Orthodoxy, Catholicism, and Protestantism. Speaking of Christianity in Azerbaijan, one should know especially the Caucasian Albanian Church and its history. The Albanian Church is one of the oldest churches not only in the Caucasus, but even in the entire Christian world. It is of the apostolic origin. The territory of the Caucasian Albania is considered to be one of the first Christian communities around. The Albanian historian Musa Kalankatuklu, who lived in the 8th century, notes in his history of Alban land that the capital of Gabala and then part of the Caucasian Albania, Partaf, now Barda, was one of the first countries to spread Christianity. Here the first Christian communities emerged from the 2nd century AD, and in the first quarter of the 4th century, exactly 313 after date, the Albanian king Urnair of the Arshakid dynasty proclaimed Christianity as a state religion. Researchers believe that one of the first churches of the apostolic origin in the Christian world is the Albanian church formed in Azerbaijan. So it's very relevant to the place that to compare such geographical juxtaposition of different ancient religions in the territory of Azerbaijan. If we are talking about the southern Azerbaijan, for example, and so I just want to make this comment here. If we are speaking about the southern Azerbaijan, for example, Zoroastrianism was very strong, so that widespread in the area, the northern parts of Iran, or as we say today with today's terminology, that southern Azerbaijan, yes. But what concerns the northern Azerbaijan, again, that according to our new terminology, so it is the Albanian, Caucasus Albanian, yes, and it is symptomatic that we have here Christianity, that the only dominant confession or a dominant religious, so that Christianity. So this is the local religion, this is autochthonous religion, that's the people of Azerbaijan in ancient times, so they were professing Christianity even before Armenians and before Georgians, so until they just accepted Christianity as state religions. But it's a very important fact, I think, that in our culture, in Azerbaijan culture. In 705, the Albanian state collapsed and the government fell under the control of the Arabs. Albanians have been subjected to ethnic change, cultural, ideological, ethno-linguistic assimilation. Those who embraced Islam were mixed with Turkic tribes. And here we also have the map, so you can see here the location of Albania, that in the Caucasus area with their neighbors bordering on both sides, the Caspian and Black Seas in between, so with Iberia, Armenia, Media, in the ancient time, Mesopotamia, so Asia, so that. And we have very, very nice map here, so you may just look at this. Nevertheless, the Christian temples in the 8th and 13th century became the main religious organization in the country, trying to preserve this religion. The examples of Gom, or Gah today, Khodavang, today Kalbajar, which has been occupied by Armenians, by the way, in Tirana, so I just mentioned that. Ganjasar, Agdara, today, so that, and other Albanian temple complexes which are located in the far western Caucasus, in the foothills of the Greater Caucasus. After the occupation of the South Caucasus by the Russian Empire, the Albanian Church has been less able to maintain its conventional independence. And which is why it follows that we talked a little bit about the Russian Orthodox Church and the operation of this Orthodox Church in the territory of Azerbaijan. It occupies a very strong position in Azerbaijan, by the way. On December 28, 1998, the Baku Caspian diocese was restored, which became the 120th diocese of the Russian Orthodox Church, comprising Orthodox parishes in Azerbaijan, Dagestan and Chechnya. There are 8 Orthodox churches in Azerbaijan, 5 of which are located in Baku. The largest is the Cathedral of Mihraberes, which reopened only at the end of the 20th century. There are 3 churches in other cities in Azerbaijan: Ganja, Sumgait and Khachmas. During his visit to Azerbaijan, Patriarch Alexei II said that the establishment of the Baku Caspian diocese was important for Orthodox believers in Azerbaijan, facilitated dialogue between the Muslim and Orthodox communities in the country. The Patriarch also praised his friendly relation to the Russians in Azerbaijan, emphasizing that the presence of the Russian community there is an important factor in cultural interaction. So we may just make in the end some recommendation or a sort of summary that in brief words which say that Azerbaijan can rightly claim to go among the most progressive and secular Islamic societies. Aside from having been the first Muslim country to have operas, theaters, plays, and democratic republic, Azerbaijan today is among the Muslim countries where support for secularism is the highest and where radical ideologies have met only very limited interests. This is all the more remarkable as Azerbaijan has by no means been peripheral to the world of Islam. It was invaded by Islamic armies only decades after the death of the Prophet Muhammad and was subsequently gradually Islamized. It was an Azerbaijani dynasty, the Safavids, who made Shia Islam the state religion of Iran. Yet even before Soviet atheism, Azerbaijan saw the rise of a secular intelligentsia that had little interest in religion aside from a marker of the cultural identity. This trend has continued after Azerbaijan's independence and considerably affected its foreign relations. While wary of Iran, Azerbaijan has looked to the West for support and for inspiration. Indeed, in a world where anti-Americanism is rife, not only in Muslim countries, but in both Europe and Latin America, service state report the majority of Azerbaijanis being favorably inclined toward the United States. Most Westerners visiting Baku marvel at the secular and Western nature of cosmopolitan in Baku. Yet in the past several years, Islam has clearly made a comeback in Azerbaijan. So I mean that Islam just became a sort of revivalism in Azerbaijan, and especially the youngsters and the young people started just follow Islamic tradition, Islamic ceremonies, and Islamic pose, so they were follow the tradition very strong. This has been a generally benign, positive factor, providing a reconnection to values and tradition for a national liberated from 70 years of atheism, Russification policies before that. Accompanied to this has nevertheless also been a rise of radical Islamic groups, many of which guided by external influences. Whenever I am talking about the external influences, at least I mean three sources that from time to time just breathe, that the Islamic revival, say that the supporters of partisans of this movement. This is Saudi Arabia Islam, Saudi Arabia Islam, and Turkish Islam, and Iranian Islam. Iranian Islam, the Shiism, and the previous two, so Sunnit traditions, but still we see that Turkish Islamism has very a sort of favor, that the secular trend, which differs from both from the Shia Islamic and Saudi Arabic, that especially when the extremist form of Islam, like Wahhabism or say traditional Salafists, through Dagestan, North Caucasus, so entered the lands of Azerbaijan to propagate the ideas of Salafist Islam that in Azerbaijan and to win the followers for their supports. Several factors have contributed to this openness of the effects, external effects. The first has been the return to traditional values and increased interest in religion, especially on the part of the young generation. This factor, common to all post-communist states, has been compounded by factors specific to Azerbaijan. First among this is the conflict with Armenia, which has brought increasing frustration in the politicization of Islam in Azerbaijan and Azerbaijani society. Azerbaijani society, after the post-Soviet identity crisis, so more particular still has been the disillusionment with the West. This is very important because the earlier pro-Western politicians, Azerbaijani leaders, political leaders, are going just to yield to some sort of policy that taken with respect in the direction of, say, Middle Eastern countries, especially Islamic countries. Particularly, I can just name the Turkey, contemporary Turkey, and this is related to that because the relationships with the Western countries became slow and slow from day to day and from month to month, from year to year. So we do need that just to restore these relationships again, and to both with the Western states and United States. Especially we can just mention as a result of this weakening and the looseness of the connection between the Western and Western policy makers, so and the sanction on Azerbaijan regulated by Section 907 of the Freedom Support Act. The waiver to Section 907 in place since 2002 has not alleviated this problem. Azerbaijan is now feel the yearly waiver is a form of blackmail against their government. American assistance to the separatist government of Karabakh has added fuel to the fire. These issues have contributed to anti-Western sentiment, which has fed Islamic radicalism in Azerbaijan. I think that one of the reasons of this radicalism is closely related to this policy, so that has place in Azerbaijan today, and in respect, relationship with the Western countries. This has been further compounded by dissatisfactions with the United States war in Iraq. Put together, these elements have substantially and negatively affected America's image and popularity in Azerbaijan. So external influences have had paramount importance on the development of radical Islam in Azerbaijan. Indeed, most radical groupings are supported or trained abroad. For example, Iran, Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region, Turkey and the Russian North Caucasus are the main sources of external influence on Islam in Azerbaijan. Among these, Iran has particularly supported radical Shia groups and used this as leverage against secular and pro-Western Azerbaijan, affecting its freedom of movement and foreign policy. The Arab Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia, and the Russian North Caucasus, primarily Dagestan, have been equally important in fostering radical Salafi Sunni groups in Azerbaijan. Islamic activism and radicalism has geographic variation also. Shia groups are strong in the south, near Iran, while Sunni radicalism is growing in the north, near the border with Russia. The capital Baku is experiencing growth in both Shia and Sunni radicalism. Government policies toward Islam in general and Islamic radicalism in particular have been inadequate. Most damaging has been the lack of legitimacy of the Supreme Board of Muslims of the South Caucasus, the main religious institution in Azerbaijan, a leftover from Soviet times. The board is plagued by cronyism and corruption. At that time, to remedy this, the state created a parallel state committee for work with religious organization. This move, while fundamentally sound and correct, in fact led to a diarchy as in the country. We have two powers, one and the second. So they're competing, yeah? And also, we'd like just to know the related problem is so connected with the failure of the Minister of Education to develop a modern curriculum in the humanities and social sciences. Let me talk about one episode, which I witnessed myself. So when I was present in the Ministry of High Education in Azerbaijan, in a sort of conference, so when the minister was questioned from the places, so whether it's possible for Azerbaijan secondary schools middle schools to teach Islamic religion, in general the world religion, for example, and the issues that are related to secularism, for example. And the minister directly answered that we should discuss this question, of course, with expertise and know the opinion of the people, this expertise, what they say about that. So, but after the discussion, the decision was that not to teach religions in the middle schools in Azerbaijan. And I think that this is one of the reasons why our pupils and students do not have access to openly to discuss, to know on religious issues, and to know the real sense of the matter. And yet the situation in Azerbaijan is not as simple as it seems. Azerbaijan, as I told, geographically surrounded by areas with strong Islamic movements, which have all sought an influence in Azerbaijan. Closest has been Iran's theocratic government, which has been eager to spread Shia's radicalism in Azerbaijan. To the north, Dagestan and Chechnya have been centers of Sunni radicalism that have affected the country, while direct influence from the Arab world has grown over the past decade. Turkish Islamic groups, private and state control, have also been present, though they have had a more benign nature. Foreign terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and some other terrorist groups try to penetrate it into the Caucasus, not only in Azerbaijan. So hence it should come to no surprise that a religious revival has taken place in Azerbaijan, as has been the case in Georgia, Armenia, Russia, or Central Asia on the whole. This has been a predominantly benign process, yet signs of Islamic radicalism are present also in Azerbaijan. Opinion polls show a growing minority viewing positively the application of Islamic law even in the country's policies and government. And visual observation over time shows an unmistakable growth in Islamic dress in the country too, indicating the growth of Islamism in the country. And politically, the presence of both homegrown and foreign militant groups in the country have been recorded. The most dramatic example is the bombings of United States embassies in East Africa in 1998. So what I would like just to remark to the end of this lecture is that it will then move to examine the external influences upon political Islam in the country, in Azerbaijan, to subsequently study some of the most relevant Islamic groups and movements in the country. Attention will then be turned to the state policy toward political Islam before concluding with recommendations for both Azerbaijani and Western governments. So these topics altogether should be exploited and explored by different students, different professions, social, political, and sociologists, so should be involved in exploring the topics and make some recommendations for betterment and for improving the condition with the rise of radical Islamism and also of extremist religious movements within the country, in Azerbaijan. Thank you for your attention.